Folks, if you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have nothing for the assessors, I'm told. We have two sets of minutes, one from the 19th, the regular meeting, and then the special select board meeting on the 20th. I have a couple of things. If you look on page 1 under public comment, because there was no public comment initially, can you show that it opened and closed? It makes reference to closing and public comment session, but it doesn't make reference to opening.
406, chair page
No,
reopens.
one
the
above
public
it.
comment.
Above it,
At the 402,
402 one.
Okay.
just say open and then closed. There were no comments other than the ones that I made. And then at 406, when it reopened, we actually had 3 people make public comments. You mentioned Russ made comments, but Paul Rosen and Catherine Dermatarosian should also be referenced as making comments. And then on page 2, toward the bottom, regarding discussion of a need to fill an LSED representative vacancy on the OHSTT, it makes reference to see the attached letter. Where's the attached letter? Because it wasn't attached to the email that we received, and I don't know what that letter was because we weren't presented with a letter that night.
Oh, I had one on my desk, so I assumed that's what it was. Okay,
But we never,
We didn't have any letter.
okay,
There
so,
was some emails, but there was no written letter. Yeah,
so if you
yeah.
delete the reference to an attached letter because the select board did not receive a letter related to that. Tom or Linda, do you have any
No,
changes
no,
or
that was
adjustments
what
to
my
that?
question too on that, when I saw that. So I think motion that we approve the minutes of April 19th, 2022 select board meeting with the changes.
We have a motion and a second to accept the minutes from the regular meeting on the 19th. Any discussion? Tom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. The next set of minutes is from the special select board meeting on the 20th of April. This had to do with the discussion on ARPA and the use of the ARPA funds. On this document, can you please make reference to the fact that it is minutes? It just says special select board meeting. I'll entertain a motion for this.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of the special select board meeting of April 20th, 2022.
You'll have to second.
You weren't present, so the chair will second that. Any discussion? Linda, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tom, you
Abstain.
abstain because you were present, and the chair votes yes. 2-0 on that. Next item on the agenda is public comments. We'll open a public comment session. Anybody have anything to speak on?
over here.
Please, yeah. please.
Marie Jeffrey, 15 Woodland Road. I'm the town appointed board member for RSU 13, and this is budget season. And I just wanted to provide an update for planning purposes. I don't think there's a whole lot that can be done at this point in time. We were presented on Thursday of last week with a draft budget. It was not approved in the meeting. It was for $35,500,000, which represents an increase of 4.7% from last year. That's a net of 1.28000, only $1.3 million. The Owl's Head portion of that increase is $415,000. So you can do the math. It's quite a bit. You know, we're shouldering quite a bit of that increase over last year's budget. Just a few statistics for us to digest. We have 90% of the students in the district. He didn't have a chart anywhere that provided the total, what they would, I'm just calling it billing us for, but I know it's a warrant, right? They send us a warrant.
When you say he, do you mean the superintendent?
The business manager.
Businessman.
You know, but absolutely, the leadership starts with the superintendent. So this is his budget and the business manager is facilitating it. That's Peter Orn, who, by the way, has offered many times to me that he would come and talk to whomever we wanted him to talk to explain how things are calculated, because the formulas are very complicated and I'm only really just beginning to understand them. So there was no number that actually gave me, or no spreadsheet that gave me the number that we're going to get billed when did they send it? In June, probably sometime in June?
After the vote,
After the vote, the referendum.
yes.
Okay, so I took last year's number that we were billed and added our portion from this draft, not approved budget. And I come up with $4,242,000. Roughly, don't be mad at me if it's 4.3 million or 4.2 million. I did go over it with Peter and he said, it's close enough. You know, it's in the neighborhood. You're within spitting distance. So close enough for planning purposes. You know, that comes up, it consists of the local portion and the minimum spend that the state of Maine calculates. And we get nailed because this minimum spend that the state of Maine calculates, and I don't know all of the components to I'm just calling it the magic formula, but they come up with 2.150000 million for our minimum spend. And when you do the calculations, that we do not spend the required 7.1 mils of our tax revenue to fund that. It's something less. It's like 5.5 or something like that. So not only do we not receive a subsidy, we also kind of get bumped up a bit because Peter calls it the marriage tax. I'm calling it, kind of being, we get skunked. Then there's the local portion, the local spend, and I guess that was agreed to, the local spend, because I said, where does that come from? Well, it was from way back, what Peter told me, when the two districts, he called them, was it NSAD 85?
MSAD 5.
Okay, when they agreed on how they were going to fund education, the 75-25% rule. So it's 75% of the property valuations, and that is a pretty simple formula. I can figure that out. It's your valuation as what percentage of the total valuation. So all of the 5 towns, ours is 388 million. And I did look at, I talked to Amy today, and our property valuation with the state of Maine for this year is 415 million. And my thought was that it's adjusted downward based on the homesteading exemption. Okay, and that makes sense to me. And then 25% is based on your students. What percentage of students do you have? So ours, and it's a rolling 3-year average for the students, and that was the 9.8%. And then they take those two numbers, jam them together, and we come up with 16%. So we pay or charge 16% of the local component, which is, I don't want to go through all the numbers here, but if anybody is interested, I could do it at this point. But the big nut for us is going to be about 4.3 million. And that I wanted you all to know. We haven't approved it because we had enough people on the board who said, that's too much. Our communities are not going to accept that. we want you to come back with a proposed budget that is a 2% increase and a 3.5.
So was there a vote or a motion on the proposal, or you guys just said?
We
"We're
just
not gonna
said,
do this"?
we want to see what a 2% increase looks like and a 3.5% increase looks like. You need to come back to us with that. And I stated, you can watch the video numerous times, that my town would be extremely unhappy with that kind of increase, and that it would 2 years in a row require probably a 10% increase in our property taxes to pay for that, as well as provide some funds to run the town. So I've stated that numerous times. And fortunately, we had enough support from the rest of the board members, because I guess in the past there hasn't been, but we had 2 people were absent, so, which was probably fortuitous. But we had 5 or 6 people that just said, no, this can't go. You've got to give us lower cost options. And, I think that's what we charged them with. They asked us for ideas. My ideas really were, ideas that nobody likes. And that's, when you start looking at classroom sizes, number of students in classrooms, the vast majority of the elementary schools have 10 or 11 kids in a classroom, which is seriously small. Seriously small. That's very small.
Ladies,
It's even smaller than the staffing to people guys documented by other districts. So,
anything else, please?
no, that's it. I just wanted, like I said, for planning purposes, that's the kind of bill we're going to get. All right.
Thank you.
I kind of got the impression it was a 4-4 split on the board members who were there, but with the 2 that were absent, we would probably pass.
No, it was not 4-4, Tom. We had at least 5.
Okay.
5 to 3.
It's interesting because 20 years ago, when we thought about withdrawing from this district, at that time, our per student cost for Owl's Head was $12,000 a student. It's probably $30,000 now. We could send them to the best of the best for that kind of money. It's just unreal. $4 million for a little teeny tiny town.
Thank you, Maria.
You're welcome.
Public comments? Any at all? Please.
My name's Bill Long. I live at Shady Nook Lane, and I go by the ditch very frequently. And I've noticed the
The ditch?
that you
Catherine,
want to talk about.
yeah, it's been postponed.
Oh,
because of
I'm
whatever.
sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
All
No,
right.
it just happened this
I would love
afternoon.
to, with the discussion that I missed on the first meeting.
Yeah, go ahead and complete your
Yeah.
comments and then,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The ditch is deteriorating because of poor construction. The tailings which line it are already moving, and they will inevitably fall down, and then the silt, the loam and all will flow down, clog the pipe. Why couldn't a solid pipe go in there? And then it can be filled over. It's safer. You'll never have to worry about maintenance. Rocks aren't going to move, and you'll get it's more efficient. And then at the very end, should have been extended. The neighbor has water in his basement now, I've been told. And the other thing I'll add is the swale by the post office is not pitching. And the paving company came by. I'm assuming Billy painted there on the tar. It needed to be brought down, carved, and water is there after that, and then that turned to ice right in front of the steps of the post office. That's all I want to say.
yeah,
Do you have
there's,
any questions?
not at this time. We'll talk about that item that is on the agenda, but it has been postponed.
Okay,
We'll talk about why.
and I'll find out when that,
Yes,
okay, thank you.
thanks a lot. Any other public comments? But
Lynn Chaplin, 15 Gin Point Road, Owl's Head. A couple meetings ago, I talked to you folks about the interlocal agreement for solid waste. And you had requested that I go before the solid waste board, which I did. And that was last week. And I wanted to just come back and reiterate where we had left things over there. And this is in reference to section 4.4 of the solid waste interlocal agreement that allows their board to incur indebtedness not to exceed $400,000 for any purpose under section 1304B of Maine Revised Statutes, can include financing, developing, construction, debt service, etc. The board has just, with the project for the transfer station, has maxed that out with a bond for $400,000. And so at this time, the status of that clause is maxed out. And that will be, as it gets paid off, the board can then borrow more or whatever they want to do to get more money, borrow, they can keep it maxed out to $400,000. I asked them if they would be willing to either remove the $400,000 or modify it. And what I meant by modifying was either to lower the amount and or specify what it can be used for instead of having such a broad paintbrush on it. I mean, it virtually allows for everything to be used. So Walter, I don't know Walter's last name.
Walter Wrights is a select board member in South Thomaston. and
Yes.
is the secretary treasurer of OHSTT.
Yes. That was the gentleman. He was doing a virtual meeting attendance, but he did have a comment. He did say that the three boards would need to agree, the three select boards would need to agree to go forward with this. If we were going to be, obviously I can, try and go out and get signatures, et cetera. But I wanted to know from you folks, what do you think about this? What is your opinion on this? Is this something that the select board for solid waste was not really in favor for it, but as I said, Walter gave me an avenue to find out and advised me that the select board would need to be the one, if it were to go through that avenue of change to get this adjusted in the interlocal agreement. It would need to be like, you folks would need to talk to the other two towns, see if there was a will, if there was interest to put it on a warrant and see if that was. So my opinion, my question is, what do you think about it?
Well, I think you're right that the process would be very similar to what we're planning for the change in the interlocal agreement that relates to the fiscal year. The three towns have to come to a conclusion. Somebody's got to draft a document that says, here's what we'd like to have happen. Get the other two select boards to go forward with it and then ultimately put it on. But I'll hear from you if you have an opinion on the issue. Tom?
Yeah, I don't think it should be open-ended money from now until
Forever.
cows come home, or whatever. I don't know if the interlocal agreement has a renewal date, I'm not really sure.
No end date.
Yeah, the whole agreement
But
doesn't.
the whole agreement does not, but you can modify it as
Yeah. Yeah, I think there should be some consideration, as you suggested, either an amount or a more specific use for the money. Because, we could spend this and then decide to pave it with gold, I guess, next time around.
Well, what they're doing right now does leave some, it doesn't cover the pavement that has always been considered for that. And some doors have been left off and, some things that really kind of need to be done. And so I can see this, going on for another 10 years beyond or whatever so that's without any town input. So, that's where I come from is how does the town get to say yay or nay to this?
Have the other two towns acted on the fiscal year yet?
Yes. They haven't had their votes, but I don't think they've had their.
Well,
vote yet, but
yeah,
all three towns are on board with changing the
Right.
fiscal year.
Because I was gonna say, if they haven't voted yet, if we're gonna propose a change like this, now would be the time to do it so that it could all be voted at once. And I would certainly want to cut the 400,000 to at least 200,000, and I think maybe specify like things for construction or
Right?
equipment.
yeah, it shouldn't be open-ended. I don't believe it should be open-ended.
Yeah, I don't know about reducing the amount, but I wonder if there's an avenue that says up to $400,000 for a specific project, and no additional funding can be acquired until and unless that
Been voted.
project
Mhm.
is completed, or that nut is paid off completely or down to a certain point before they add to it again. You know, if they pay down $73,000, for example, and they get to that point, they say, all right, now that's enough for the doors, let's go ahead and add that 73 grand back onto it again. I don't know, we'd have to get creative on how
Okay.
that would work, but, you know, that's a policy that's been there for many, many years. I don't know, you know, I was on the board for 3.5 years. I'm not aware of any other time when they went out for bond for that much money.
I don't think that they
All
have.
that
And
time?
in fact, well, that was one of my questions was, you know, my intent is not to take away emergency funds that you would need if something broke. That's not my intention at all. My intention is to just get some more accountability, and not particularly for this board, because those guys they really do try hard. But in 10 years, you know, you might have a different board in there, and there might be other motivations.
I think anybody that uses the facility on a regular basis recognizes that the maintenance has been deferred for way too long, and here we are, we're right up against it.
Right. It was stated that there had been only one time that they had to borrow $50,000 on this clause, and that was for an emergency maintenance type thing. So I know that they also have, you know, they have a budgetary, a contingency fund now. So they, you know, they're not completely without resources as they have been in the past. So that's my only comment.
Thank you.
Right.
Ken, I saw you. Pam, did you? Go ahead, Pam, please.
Ken and I look a lot alike.
Well, he had his hand up behind you. So.
One of the things that I wanted to come here to my small little town of Owl's Head is to ask where we are with thinking about
Sorry.
affordable housing. I'm very concerned about the affordable housing and how it doesn't serve us well for drawing families here and keeping our community. I live in Owl's Head because I know people here, so I'm particularly concerned about absentee ownership and what that looks like. And I'm not saying we shouldn't consider it to some degree, but as it's moving through our country as a nationwide issue, I think it's something that we should be looking at here in Owl's Head. And I don't know the statistics in our town. Hopefully we're not too far behind the curve, and so we can think thoughtfully about how we want to maintain our community.
Yeah, there's an item on the agenda tonight talking about short-term rentals and whether or not the town should regulate STR.
So we're going to have that conversation, or you're going to have
At the
that
very
conversation.
beginning of a conversation. Yeah.
Okay, good. Then my timing's great.
Thank you. There's others that haven't
I
spoken.
just
yet.
want to make sure that people identify themselves.
Oh,
I'm
I
sorry.
don't know
Thank
who
you.
you are.
Okay, now you do. My name is
I
Pam
don't.
Balsa, and I live in Cottage.
I apologize.
Yes, it was Gordon's fault. My name is Pam Moss, M-A-U-S, on Cottage Avenue here in Owl's Head.
Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mary. Ken,
Yes, hi, Ken Wexler, Parkers Beach Road. I did have my hand up before. I was gonna comment about, a committee was looking into the whole, Airbnb problems and other things. And I see you do have it in the agenda. And I think the fact that we're getting ready to look into that is a terrific idea.
any other public comments? Any at all? Public comment session is now closed. Next item on the agenda under old business is a follow-up discussion about the roadside ditch in front of 9 Main Street Due to an issue with the Martirosian family, they've requested that we push this off to another meeting. You were supposed to be notified, did you not get the word?
Okay.
It's okay. Sorry.
You need me then, I'm out of here.
Just for the entertainment value alone. Might be worth sticking around. Thank you, Bill. Next item on the agenda is a follow-up on the code enforcement officer's notices of violation for the properties located on Ingram's Hill and South Shore Drive. Is he here?
Yeah.
While we're waiting for Scott, if we could, Ken, if you're prepared, let's move to the update from the planning board on the matter related to FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program.
Yes.
It might be worthwhile, Scott hearing it as well, so.
Should I wait a minute for Scott or?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So there's action all over the place on these FEMA items. I'll just run through them and so they can matter record. On Crescent Beach, where we had on 58 Crescent Beach, there were two issues. The question of the floodplain heights of the building, of the house, and the riprap / seawall. As far as the issue with the Scott's notice of violation, it's been formally appealed by the homeowner. The appeal is here. I have a copy. I sent it to FEMA so they can be aware of it. There's been some discussions between FEMA and the attorney for the homeowner, and I think we need to get as a town, who's on first? Is this us or FEMA? Who's calling the shots here? But let me come back to that. But anyway, the appeal's been filed, and that's totally their right. And I guess the appeals CBA will respond. The second issue there was, if you remember, was the seawall / riprap, and we are waiting for the state's review of whether or not they think that FEMA is right on this. And Sue Clark has told me a couple of times that she's sorry, but they're just not sure themselves if there's a problem. In terms of Gin Point, I was going to, it's been sort of left that we would request the Wilkinsons to supply some additional information regarding the appraisal that we received. And
The name on that again, please. The homeowner, you mentioned you referenced a name.
Yeah.
What is it?
Why now are you thinking I said the wrong name?
Yeah.
It's not Wilkinson.
So if you're gonna say it, I just prefer that.
Tell me the name.
Say it right. Watkinson.
Watkinson, okay, what's an I and an A? With Watkinson, sorry, thank you, Gordon. So I'm gonna, at next Monday's planning board, I'm gonna ask the planning board for, I think the planning board as a whole should approve this, since it's gonna be the name of the planning board. This is my opinion. We sort of talked about it with Sue Clark, that if we're gonna ask the, on behalf of the planning board for the Watkinsons to do something, I think that the planning board should vote on it. And I'm gonna request that at next Monday's meeting. That's on the agenda. In regards to the issue of the ordinances, whether or not we have to correct our ordinances, that is also under review by the state. So as you can see, the gist of it, the state and the federal government have some disagreements in this. And Sue Baker repeated to me the other day that they're not so sure that they don't know what the answer is to the question. So that matter is on hold. The community visit is set. We have the dates when they're coming up here. It's down to 1 day now, which is a good thing. And I'm gonna,
1st of June,
yeah, no, it's the third.
2nd of June.
Second, yes. And I'm gonna coordinate it with Scott. He doesn't need to be, he needs to be Scott, somebody willing to drive around with him. I know, Gordon, you mentioned you wanted to be present for part of it. So from a whole week, we're down in 1 day, which I think we can take care of. We have set up monthly meetings. That's gonna start the end of this month with Gordon, myself, Scott, and Sue Baker to go through our responses and what we're working on. So that's underway. That was a positive result. And I think that, I said the community visit, so that's where we're at. I mean, I think, in my opinion, the things are amped down a little bit. Things are being collected in a business, dealt with in a business-like manner. And that's all we can to do in this point. There's a agenda item that you have on about whether or not what the town is going to do about representation. I think we do need some, and I assume you'll talk about that when it comes up on the agenda. So other than that, I'm personally good for now, and we just got to let this stuff play itself out.
Tom,
I have two questions. One on the Gin Point Road.
Watkinson, yeah.
If that is a violation or something, what would have to happen?
Oh, boy.
I know with the other one, they would have to remove stuff, but what would happen in this instance?
Lift it up in the air. It's a big deal, and there's a lot at stake. And in my opinion, FEMA isn't so quick in this case to tell us, order them to go ahead. And they want to see some additional information that to prove, if they can prove that it was a minor renovation, not a major, then they don't have to do anything. As it stands right now, it's a major renovation, and the fix is extensive.
The other thing is it not correct that they did put us on probation?
they did not.
No, they did not.
I thought the email said that, but
It's potential, but they haven't.
Okay.
pulled the
No,
trigger.
and I honestly, anything's possible, but I think if we can keep up the dialogue, I think that,
I think it's good if they haven't done it now, then they probably
Yeah.
won't.
as long as we keep working with them, and this appeal that was filed on behalf of 58 is going to be very interesting. And you ever hear something that's two sides to the same story?
Yeah, I guess, can you understand their rationale about the 50% improvement? I mean, if someone wanted to put gold fixtures in their bathroom, what difference does that make if it takes it over the 50% valuation or whatever? I don't really understand what that has to do with anything.
It's all about dollars and cents.
Right,
They measure the value, that's how they find what the value of the property, the structure
right.
is worth. You put gold in there, it's probably gonna be worth more than just plain old chrome.
For the record, that's Scott.
Yes, I'm Scott.
Right. So why does FEMA care though if it's more valuable? Because they'll have to pay more if it's destroyed? Is that where they're
Exactly.
coming from?
They came up with this 50%, because at 60,
Right,
80, 90, they didn't.
right.
They said 50, and that's what was done in DC, and that's what was done in Maine, based upon FEMA's Maine. Actually, our ordinance was put together under the Maine rules,
Mhm.
secondary to FEMA. And there's some changes in the Maine rules that are not in FEMA. Some more restrictive, like 1 foot higher than the flood. That's a Maine requirement, not the federal government's requirements. We are more restrictive. And that's what happened down there at Tabell, is that they dropped it down 1 foot, put it in
Right.
the Maine's violation, more so than FEMA's. But that's the number, 50%, and we look for that value in every fitting, every faucet, every toilet seat,
Yeah.
and every nut, bolt, and screw that's ridiculous to count. And we have people that's done that.
No, I just don't understand it.
It's an awful lot of work for anybody to prove a minor. They gotta find somebody that can appraise the structure, not do comparisons, but what it would cost to replace that particular structure. And Pine Tree Appraisal is the only one I know of that's actually chased it down to find out what they had to do.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ken, a couple of questions.
Yeah.
58 Crescent Street, the appeal of the notice of violation, to whom was that sent?
Mr. Bigford.
Okay, so did the select board receive a copy of that?
Not as of yet.
Could you please, to the three of
As
us,
soon as I see it,
you haven't seen it?
No, I thought you
No.
said you had it.
I think it's on my desk
He does
now.
have
I haven't had a
Okay.
chance to open it. and look at
So
it.
you have a copy of it?
Yes.
You have a copy.
I believe I do. I think I saw something from there. I also
If the
received an email.
Three select board members could get that electronically, that would be helpful.
I think you've got one that I get copied on. If I'm not
Did
mistaken.
it come by email or?
FedEx.
Yeah, I don't have anything in my file, do I? I don't see anything.
The only thing I received was the FedEx.
If it comes to you, what's the next step?
If it comes to me, what she sent me, I've already responded to, asking her to involve the selectmen.
I mean, we can't just shovel it off to FEMA to deal with.
No,
Well, that's one of the questions that came up. Would the appeal be filed to our Board of Appeals, or would it be filed towards another agency? Because in essence, the Board of Appeals for the town of Owl's Head may not have enough, for lack of a better way of saying it, enough skill to deal with this type of an issue.
you do have two appeals board members that is aware of what they have to go through for a minor.
No, this is related to 58.
58.
This-
So,
yeah, this is
because I read it, it's absolutely addressed to the zoning board of appeals. So the zoning board of appeals, in my opinion, is gonna, I've always wondered whether that this was the right place to go with. But I think the answer to that is gonna come from the zoning board of appeals. Say, no, we don't have jurisdiction, or we do have jurisdiction. Or our attorney would tell us what.
We really, it's not for us to go to the ZBA and say, you can't deal with this.
No, I don't
We
think.
have to be totally hands off on that.
Our ordinance does call for it to go to the zoning board of appeals.
So if the ZBA declines or denies the appeal, or I shouldn't say it that way, if they deny the appeal, what's the next step? And then
That
what
would be a
about
good
the,
legal question, because normally it would go to the courts.
Right.
And I can't speak legally on what would really happen to that. This.
all right,
very
so
interesting.
the opposite of that is what if the ZBA approves the claim of appeal?
And FEMA gets
And
that.
how does FEMA deal with that?
It's of great interest too.
We'll know when it happens.
All right, so if you could make sure that the three of us receive that. Other question, Ken, that I had as it relates to Gin Point. You said that the planning board, you want the planning board to vote on taking action. Does that mean you want the planning board to vote on applying a violation notice?
No. The way I took that last meeting that we had with FEMA is that they're willing to let the Watkinsons, FEMA's willing to revisit the value of revisit the question of whether it's a valid appraisal. That's what the whole thing hinges upon, whether the appraisal value. And my takeaway from the discussion is that they were willing to let the Watkinsons come in and prove that the valuation is correct.
Sure.
So what I was gonna ask the planning board to do was to vote on requesting this information from the Watkinsons. In other words, we don't have anything in writing to, we need a little bit, that was my thought to do it. I don't know what the planning board's gonna respond to.
So I have to agree with Ken as it relates to the heat of the issue. The gentleman from FEMA no longer seems like he's trying to make the water continue to just boil. It's way down to a simmer. And I think as long as the town works together with the different parties within the town to show intent to be in compliance with FEMA, we should be in relatively good shape. But we don't have control.
Stay tuned.
The only thing we have control over is making sure that we're all moving forward.
Can we be responsive?
Anything else, Ken?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Scott,
Yes.
We hope to follow up on your notices of violation for the Ingram's Hill and the South Shore Road Drive properties.
At this time, I've heard that Mr. Crudell has been hospitalized. I don't know where that situation is right now.
And which property is that for?
That's the one for Ingram's Hill. And the other one, which is for 52, 54, 50,
We know where it is.
59 North Shore Drive.
South Shore
South
Drive.
Shore Drive.
South Shore, I'm sorry. I just get the email, still don't smudge it. I did talk to her, she called me today, that's the spouse of Ed Curtis, and
That's good.
she assured me that they would try to get it down during the first part of June when they come back from Florida.
Good.
And he's been true to his word on the old house that used to be there, and I think he'd be true to his word on this, so I think we should allow him to pursue.
It wouldn't take much to take it down.
Just stand there and wait.
All right, well, that's good news. I'm sorry that Mr. Cordell isn't well, but we'll just kind of bird dog that and see where that goes. And you'll let us know when this comes down?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thanks. While you're there,
Oh, but wait, there's more.
Hang on.
next item on the agenda, continue the discussion of the building and land use permit fees. At the last meeting that you attended in this matter, you were going to get us documentation from South Thomaston and St. George. Is he
They
paying?
have that.
Is he
They
paying?
have that?
Oh,
We do?
yeah, it's hooked to this.
It's up to,
The fee schedule.
I have South Thomaston. I don't have anything now.
is it something you gave us this afternoon?
It's in your packet.
Well, we
St.
got
George.
St. George, but all it is the application. There's no
And
figure.
It says it right at the top of right at the top. It's in the-
It's a
Yeah,
minute,
that's
yeah.
Yeah.
I say, yeah, so they don't break it out as to,
Correct. And I
Yeah.
think South Thomaston's on the back.
yeah, I saw South Thomaston.
Yeah.
All right, I don't have it.
It's not with this here.
No, I have the one that I brought.
That one there.
That one.
Maybe it's, I'm sorry. Looking at the wrong pile.
I attached all of the others to your pile.
So this is a total of one page for South Thomaston and one page for St. George?
Yes,
Only
St.
St.
George
George
apparently is,
doesn't have any fees on it,
well, application fee at the top.
that's it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't break anything.
No, $2 per 1,000.
All right, so now that we have this, I mean, I'm not prepared to
Yeah,
make
we
any
get,
opinions or comments because I haven't had a chance to review it.
right.
So, but now that we have it, we'd like to continue it, Scott, we'll continue it to another meeting after we've had a chance to look at it.
Once again, if I can remind you that these fees help pay for the review, for the time spent on processing a permit. And it's not to be made for profit for the town, but it is to be made large enough to cover the expenses of issuing those permits, which means the computer and the time, so forth. And unbelievably, Rockport just jumped theirs $50 to start and then square foot after that in some cases,
But you're
which I think
comfortable,
that's high.
you're comfortable with the recommendation that you made that we'll remain in compliance?
I think that would be, yeah, I think that would be good.
We wouldn't be pushing the envelope too much.
And I do think I wouldn't be quite so far behind. You'll notice that the plumbing permits are over your budget for this month, for this third quarter. And that's because it's state regulated. Whereas our building permits are down. This would help bring that number back up.
Okay.
And I do have plenty of those things still coming at me. Things being permits, the requirements, the applications.
Sure.
So whether you do or don't, it's your choice.
Are you both in agreement that we'll defer any decision on this?
Sure,
Yes, yeah.
I just wanted people to have the opportunity to know about it in case they wanted to say anything, and apparently nobody has wanted to say anything, right?
I've heard no comments on this, and I've tried to keep this realistic compared to South Thomaston. They're way down,
They're way down, you said?
way down in their fees. They've been for years. They've always been lagging.
Even lower than what Owl's Head currently is?
Oh, yes.
Well, the 10 cents. And we're
I
10
haven't looked at
cents.
it really
Yeah.
closely. but-
Yeah. Reconstruction's 20 cents. They're down, yeah, they're 10 cents for everything.
So I wouldn't mind voting on it at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think we get a chance to digest it and kind of compare it.
Yeah, I don't want to just
Yeah,
say, sure,
Exactly.
let's rubber stamp it.
Right,
We
right.
need to know, we need to have an understanding of what
Right.
it means.
And I would welcome any thoughts that the board may have.
yeah,
Either
well,
way, up
chance
or
to
down.
look at it and see how it compares. Somewhere along the line, we have a total of fees, right? It's in the audit report or somewhere that we took in last
Yes,
fiscal
yes,
year.
yes, you do. And when I first started here, I took the original fees and doubled those. It was 5 cents, and I moved that to 10
Well,
cents.
that's
But that was
effectively
50
what
years
you've done
ago.
here.
50, 18,
That's effectively what you've done, though. You've essentially doubled
again.
Again,
those
right.
rates.
Yeah, but I think the cost of living and everything is more than doubled over those years too.
If I remember correctly, you indicated at one of the previous meetings, we were talking about this, that you thought those rates should change about every 8 or 10 years.
Usually, yeah, if I was more on my game and I wasn't so busy, I would have said something about this 3 or 4 years ago for sure.
Sure.
But it's just been so damn busy, I haven't had the opportunity.
Okay, do you have anything else for us at this time?
No, I'm good.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott. Next item on the agenda is the update on the special select board meeting regarding American Rescue Plan funds. Bill, did you want to give us a little bit of an update that you and Pam have been working on, please? Sure. Come forward, please.
Hi,
Identify this.
my name is Bill George. I live at 6 Ledgewood Lane. I attended a special meeting of the selectmen with Pam, who's,
I need Eleanor, sorry.
oh, okay. To review the various provisions of the ARPA and what we need to do. I think it was a very fruitful meeting in that now that the law has been loosened up, if you will, there's more of an opportunity for the town to get some amount of limited funds. However, one of the challenges that we're now facing, like virtually every other town in Maine, other than the 6 largest ones, is that we had a deadline to report what we're doing as of April 30th. And Pam and I spent an enormous amount of time just trying to actually report. And without getting into a lot of details, the way it's supposed to work is that there's special reporting for the 6 largest towns, of which we are not one of those towns, tribes, of which Owl's Head is not a tribe, and then for all other towns unlisted. And you're just supposed to be able to go in as all other towns and be able to report your information. There was no option for all other towns. So we were unable to get in. Pam was successful in reaching them. So we have a case number, so we have an ability to continue to report. But we did go through the exercise of picking a number of possible projects. We didn't know what these would cost. We have some placeholders, and we're continuing to go down the road to understand exactly what we have to do from an approval process before we can take the next steps. So
I haven't officially heard what those placeholders are, so if you could enumerate them.
I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying.
Tell us what we maybe want to do. the 5 things, I believe.
Sure. Do you want to,
Well, I just wrote them down and I came up with 4 of the 5 and the 5th
Okay.
one is love. So it's the roof, the building's roof, the boiler and the furnace, employees, certain employees,
Mhm.
tennis courts,
yes,
and I'm trying to remember what the hell the 5th one was.
what I'll call the
one
Richard,
that floats at the
the
dock.
float.
Floats, yeah. So those were the 5 specific items, and we put an estimated dollar amount next to each one of those. And at that meeting, at least, the dollar amount came up to,
What, 160,000,
169 to 91.93.
which eats up the
Yeah.
entire, if the numbers are correct and accurate, it would have eaten up the entire
Shows everything.
allotment.
Since then, Bob Hirsch got an estimate of, for demolition of the surface of the tennis court, not inclusive of repaving and striping. And that estimate exceeded what we estimated initially in that first meeting, so we might have to cut and paste and bob and weave a little bit if in fact this goes through. I think we identified as a priority was the roof and the boiler.
Yes,
Those 2 are very important.
And probably the 4th, 3rd.
The floats, certainly that's important. I don't know that I'd put an A and B on floats and employees, but, and as it relates to the roof, it's more than just re-shingling the roof. We need to protect the attic because we've got snow and ice blowing in and wet rain during certain storms blowing in under the ridge cap, creating a mess. We had some ceiling and lighting damage when was that? Just a couple of months ago.
That was just in February, because we just came down with it.
Yeah, the janitor and I spent the better part of 2 hours up top vacuuming and getting rid of all the.
All right, on the roof of this building, but then we have the roof of the salt shed.
Unrelated.
On that, well, no, it is related in one sense. How come insurance is gonna cover one but not the other?
Well, we don't know for sure that insurance is gonna cover the salt shed, but salt shed hadn't been an issue at the time we were having the ARPA funds discussion, because we didn't discover the problem over there yet at that point.
All right, so I would move that up if need be.
Mhm.
If we have to pay for it, I think that should be one of the ones.
Yeah, I'm thinking, and I don't know enough about it, but this probably isn't an insurance issue because it's a situation that's existed for years, right? That moisture coming up in here. Do you remember that, Dick?
Yeah, but I think, at the end of the eaves up here, a couple of times the vent was left open.
Yeah.
And that was the creation of drift coming in.
And there's a trap door there now, which was closed in February. What we discovered was the water blowing in under the ridge cap.
But
Coming down.
that's all I knew about before was on the ends. We failed to close that up properly.
So I would, under these circumstances, I would consider the replacement of this roof and the correction of the issue as deferred maintenance. It's not something that we thought about otherwise. Anything else?
Yeah, the one thing that remains is that we need some granular advice as to literally how to proceed. Whether it's a selectmen decision, select board decision, or do we have to go to an actual town meeting?
Right.
And we were to ask, I guess, the legal department of Maine Municipal Association for either what are the rules or what are the best practices? We all attended the same seminars and we called different things. So it should be, I would think, hopefully a pretty easy question to answer. But once we have that answer, we can then start walking down the road and getting bids.
Once the issue of the filing of the report
Yes.
is completed, then we can take the next steps. But
Yes.
until that happens, we really can't do anything, can we?
Well, I think we can do them at the same time. I think we need to figure out how to, once we came up with a straw list, how do we proceed? And that can happen at the same time. So hopefully Pam has asked, I know Pam has asked the question of Neil Goldberg, and see what they respond.
When's the next reporting period? In October or somewhere like that?
I'm going to punt. I don't remember.
I don't know. if
It will be,
it's-
because we haven't spent anything, so we only have to tell them that we haven't even
No.
earmarked anything. But when we do, even if we haven't spent it, I think we have to tell them, okay, we're going to spend X amount for roof.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's probably October, because that's the end of the fiscal year
Yeah.
for the United States.
It's probably quarterly.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be, because April, well.
Quarterly off of an odd calendar quarter.
We might find that out, just so we know going forward that,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
this is the timeframe.
Other questions?
No.
Okay.
No?
Before you go, Bill, you're next up.
Okay. Yes.
This next item on the agenda is the review and the vote on the Maine Municipal Association Property and Casualty Pool. I do have a document that talks about the changes, and Bill, correct me or Pam if either of us are incorrect, but there's one page on which changes were recommended. And that had to do with the deductibles for specific pieces of property. Is that correct?
There were, I'm doing this from memory, there was one page which were properties where for, I think 5 of them, we increased the deductibles. The next page were what I'll call vehicles.
Yep.
And for those, we increased the deductibles. And for one vehicle, we increased the valuation to what we think is replacement cost. But that was it for the fire department equipment. Those changes we deferred pending an inventory, to put it simply.
Okay, so it is, in fact, it's 2 pages. It's not
Yes.
just the one page. that
Yes.
Pam told me about. So we haven't made a final decision on this. We haven't voted
Right,
finally on this.
What does the savings?
Well, that's to be determined. Just give me a second to bring you through this. Initially, Bill had made a recommendation, and we voted in favor of Bill's recommendation. We also had a conversation with Pam that we would increase the deductibles, thereby reducing not the annual nut to pay for the insurance. At the time we were doing this, Pam had raised the issue that somebody at MMA, Marcus, had a concern that we were doing the wrong thing. So although we voted, we then had a meeting with Marcus and another representative from MMA. And at the next select board meeting, we voted to reconsider that vote, which we did. So that's where we're at now. It's back on the agenda. The changes that are recommended are on the firehouse, the fire station. The current deductible, which has been in place for a number of years, is $1,000. The recommendation is to change the deductible to $5,000. On the community center, on this building, the deductible was $1,000. That recommendation is to go to $5,000. The salt barn shed, the salt shed, again, $1,000, raising to $5,000. And then the pump house 1 and pump house 2, one being at Cottage Ave and the other one being at Harborside Terrace, going from $1,000 to $5,000. Those are the 5 specific structures. Now, since this, we have damage has been discovered on the salt shed. We don't know what the value of the cost of repair is going to be. In theory, it's going to be more than the $5,000 deductible, but how much more? If you look out the window, you can see the damage that wind has pulled that up and creased the metal roof and pulled the fasteners away from the metal, pulled the wooden understructure away from the inner framing. So we're going to talk about that shortly, but
All right.
The question is, do we risk changing the deductible now before, but the claim is already in, so we probably covered
Well,
that.
we were covered under the old policy, and
Yeah,
as Tom pointed out, we don't know if we will in fact be covered. That remains to be seen. But we are covered under the old policy, so I'll say that with a smile on my face.
when does the policy, when's the renewal?
July 1, I think.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah,
we're
we're-
still under the old policy, this
Yes.
wouldn't go into effect until July
Yeah.
then. So I think, if they covered it, we're covered at the 1,000 or whatever.
But I think it's important that we have it on the table, so
Oh,
that everybody's aware
definitely,
of.
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
As it relates to the automobile schedule, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of rolling stock, fire apparatus. Each of those, the current comprehensive deductible is $500, and the recommendation is to go to $2,000 with each of those.
Yeah.
And the collision deductibles, each at $1,000, the recommendation is to go to $5,000. And to increase the replacement value for the Freightliner. Which one is that? What's the Freightliner?
We don't have a great one.
Good.
We should strike that out, did we? That must be something else.
I'm asking for the record, the fire captain is in the room.
Is there a ID number or anything on it?
It's got a 4-digit VIN, but
Yeah.
it's not entirely. So we got a 1982 Chevy pumper. 1997 International pumper.
Yep.
2009 GMC.
Yep.
2021 Freightliner.
That's the new
What's the
one?
new
That's the new
truck?
one.
It's a, it's not great, it's in, I don't know, I'll have to look. It's a metal pad, main truck.
Well,
It's a metal pad fire truck.
Is the chassis a Freightliner?
The chassis could be a freight.
Okay, so that's what it
Yes.
is. Okay.
Yeah, the chassis could be a freight.
So it is a Freightliner. So that's 4 pieces. That's all we got. All right, so the replacement value on that, the recommendation initially said $299,515, pushing that up to $325. So I guess the question is to the select board, what's your pleasure? How do you want to do this? Are we ready to accept this recommendation and change the deductibles?
I am, but I'm just still curious as to what the difference in the two fees are.
I think the premium drops by about $1,800 a year.
It would have been more except for raising the replacement value.
Yeah.
How expensive is that?
That was really minor. That was very minor.
So with all of these changes, we're talking about a grand total savings of under $2,000.
It would have been more had we moved on the fire department equipment, but we'll do that later on.
I'll make a motion that we accept the changes that's proposed and renew the contract under the new deductible.
I'll second that. I have a question, and maybe it's okay, but why is the Ingram Hill sewer stuff included on that? Town doesn't own that. That's a separate enterprise fund. The sewer, they have their own, they're supposed to pay for it out of user fees. I'm not sure that it all happens, but I just wonder, I guess perhaps it has to be included under our.
I don't know the answer to the question
I don't know.
specifically, but I'm guessing because it's been on the policy for a number of years. However it wound up there, I don't have an answer.
Right,
for
I'm
that.
just wondering why it's, what it's.
And don't we always say that sewer just never pays for itself anyway, so?
Well, it doesn't, that's not the point. The point is, why are we paying the insurance policy on that, It's, spending taxpayers' money on private property again. But
Right, but I thought we had to make up any difference anyway, so.
I think it's paying for itself now. We'd have to ask Pam about that, but I think it is, because there's a whole separate fund for that. And it's a whole separate, enterprise fund, or whatever they call it.
Well, we could check with them, perhaps we are charging them for the insurance.
we should recover it. Yeah, it might be fine to have it under our policy, and maybe we have to have it under our policy, but the town should be reimbursed for whatever. It's probably such a small amount. Do they break down the fee for each component on that?
Pump house number 1 talks about the value, the building value,
Yeah.
as well as 2. You want those numbers?
No, I mean, does it say how much the policy is for that item?
No.
Doesn't
No,
say
it
that,
doesn't
doesn't break
say
any of
that.
that down,
No.
okay, so it's
It
just
just
one.
shows you the building value. It's a total
Alright,
policy.
It's a total thing, alright.
So we're in discussion phase now, so what other questions or discussion do you guys have?
I don't have any.
I'm a little more conservative than these would recommend, and the thing that pops in my head is when I got the call from Billy saying, or from Eleanor telling us that Bill had reported that the salt shed roof was peeling off, even though it's falling under the current policy. 2 of the buildings on here, in terms of construction type, are defined as fire resistive. That's the fire station and the salt shed. Fire station primarily because it's masonry and metal.
Right, yeah.
Same thing with the salt shed. Everything else is identified as frame. We're talking about fire. But we're not talking about necessarily weather, storms, that type of thing, which all would be covered under these. I'm just wondering if for $1,800 a year savings, is it worth risking and bumping those up?
Well, might wanna look at, past experience with any of that also.
Yeah, and that's what Bill did. I mean,
Yeah.
to give credit to Bill for doing the
Yes,
research that he
yeah.
did. But there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buildings that there is no recommendation to increase the deductible.
The values of the buildings were pretty low, right?
One is the homestead.
Mhm.
One are the floats in the gangway. Isn't the gangway fire resistant? Isn't that metal?
Mhm.
The homestead itself and the barn, I should have separated those 2. And then the stump tump attendance shed, which is valued at $6,000.
Pretty high. 6,000.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Appreciate your hesitancy. Could we see if the wind damage is even covered? If it's not, you raised a good point. We don't know if it's even
Right. Like an
covered.
act of God.
It may not be covered.
We still have plenty of time for
Yeah,
this.
I'd file the claim and ask what's the story?
Yeah. The claim has been filed, the adjuster has been here.
Okay,
We're waiting for a contractor to give us an estimate. I talked to Maine Coast Construction, just so you guys know. Maine Coast Construction does not deal with those types of buildings. I had a call from Mr. Davy explaining that. The contractor that's working at the airport that's putting up the Penobscot Island Air hangar, the job site superintendent did come over at my request to look at it, and he thought it would be a fairly easy thing for him to do an emergency patch. And I called his office at his recommendation, and they haven't called me back. Bob Hirsch has a tendency to call on Les Murray for certain things, and Les no longer does that kind of work, but he made a recommendation for a friend of his who's a contractor who I'm waiting to hear back from. So there may not be an awful lot of contractors that are willing to do this kind of work.
What about the person who put the building up in the first place?
We don't know if we have that information.
We must have it somewhere.
Yeah, I've asked Pam, and she wasn't sure where that would be, but
I'm sure. I don't remember you getting, remember when it happened? Pardon?
I believe it might be down in the vault.
Yeah, it has to be somewhere.
While we're talking, You mentioned other buildings. Is the Grange insured at all?
The Grange is on here and with a deductible of $2,500 against the $35,000 value. Value.
I was just wondering, since I believe we're probably going to be getting rid of it.
Well, we own it now. The town
Right,
has taken possession of it again. When you say getting rid of it, that implies we want to sell it or burn it or tear it down. I don't know what.
Give it away.
whatever. Well, let's put it this way, if it were to burn down, we wouldn't be replacing it.
No.
Take
So I just-
35,000 and run.
So I was just wondering if it's worth insuring at all, other than, personal
Oh, right.
injury.
No, that's-
Yeah, you can have liability on it. I think the building itself is probably, right now, it's not an asset, it's a liability, as far as,
Well, it was reported to me this afternoon when I came in that the back door is open in the building. And I'll go down later today, seal it up. I got the key.
Say hello to the raccoons.
yeah.
All right, what do you want to do? You want to hold off on this for now again until?
Yeah, let's, finalize it in June. That way we'll know what's going on with the salt shed and,
Right.
anything else we may wanna.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay.
Well, we can just, vote no.
It's
if you wanna
probably
withdraw
cleaner to
it.
just withdraw it.
All right, well, withdraw the second then.
That way there's no negatives
Yeah, okay,
in the minutes.
all right.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay.
Hang in there with us.
Okay.
All right. Next item on the agenda is an update on the search for administrative assistant deputy clerk. We have 3 applications from 3 separate people. We're not going to take any action on that tonight, but we need to schedule interviews.
What's today the deadline, the new deadline, or?
Today at noon was the new deadline. And since we increased the length of time for the ad, no, we didn't receive any more. So you each have the 3 applications. Maybe sometime over the next, I'll be away, but over the next few days, we can communicate via email, talk about scheduled timing for this. I would like to suggest to the select board that during this time of reviewing applicants, that we engage the town clerk, as the town clerk is going to be primarily responsible for the training. Thoughts on that? In favor, not in favor?
Well, certainly she could be part of the interview process.
Yeah, it's our decision, of course, but I think
Right,
it's not a bad idea.
right, because there could be some questions that she may have that we wouldn't, and questions of the applicant.
We didn't do that the last time.
Right,
And I don't think we did it when we hired you, did we?
Susan did come in.
Did you? I'm trying to remember. All right, so that's the update on that. Next item on the agenda under new business, discuss whether or not the select board will authorize acquiring legal services pertaining to the matter of FEMA-required enforcement of a perceived violation of National Flood Insurance Program guidelines. As we all know, we don't have a town attorney as such. We contract with attorneys on an as-needed basis. There's some concern as to whether or not the town is properly protected without legal advice as it relates to the demands and requirements being put upon the town by FEMA. FEMA has held a great big hammer over our heads regarding the National Flood Insurance Program and the possibility that the individual from FEMA could recommend probation, then suspension, and ultimately cancellation of the town's ability to get flood insurance, or for people who live in town to get flood insurance
through FEMA.
through FEMA. Exactly. Which obviously, as we all know, is significantly less cost, but
I don't know that. I don't know if anybody's ever explored that.
way I've been led to
It's
believe.
it's 2/3 less. Give us a nickel.
So, as we know, we've got 2 notices, excuse me, we've got 2 properties that have notices of violation or pending notices of violation. It's a significant cost to these property owners to do the work that FEMA would require. The concerns that were raised in the meeting that we had recently was, how does the town protect itself if it does everything it's supposed to do and the property owner still does not comply with the FEMA regulations? We don't want every other property owner in town to be penalized as a result of the failure of that one property owner. So we need some guidance. As we know, the property owner has appealed. We just have to figure out whether or not we're gonna do this with legal support.
Perhaps we should wait till after the in-person meeting,
What in-person meeting?
the June 2nd.
Well, I don't think, that doesn't really relate to this, that's just an overview of everybody's property in town that's under the floodplain and has
Yeah,
flood
but
insurance.
But if they come and they say, oh, one of the two is fine, at that point, then it lessens the need.
I don't know, I think, we may have to defend our planning board or code enforcement officer's decision. Do we stand up for their decision? Or do we just let them, blow in the
Well,
wind? So
but
we need some advice.
but FEMA is forcing that action, so I don't know if why we want to defend it if
Because our planning board or code enforcement officer issued the permit, are they gonna come back and, have something to say about their actions? Because they issued the permits.
I just was thinking it might be a little too early to.
Well, knows that we need to actually go out and actually hire someone. I think we might want to be thinking about perhaps whom, that we would have some expertise in that particular area. Because I think the attorney for the Crescent Beach property certainly has expertise in that area. So I think if we get someone, we have to make, it has to be someone that has that background.
Dick had his hand up first, but Dick, come forward, identify, please.
Richard Carter, North Shore Drive. What about MMA? Did you consult them to see what they could give you for an explanation, or if you need to go forward with an attorney?
Yeah, it's a good starting point.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure they would get involved because of
No, but
it
they
being
can,
FEMA, but they can.
what I'm trying to
certainly-
say, they might give
Right.
you some guidance.
Yes, exactly.
Hang on, Maria. Ken.
So, I agree with what Linda just said.
So you,
Ken Wexler, Crockers Beach Road. One of the bases of the appeal for the Crescent Beach thing is that they got a permit from the planning board. And so what if FEMA says, all right, you made a mistake, this is on you, town allows it.
Right.
Second thing is we got the owner saying we got no right to, we can't be doing it, blah, blah, blah. So an attorney would advise us, is FEMA right? Is the homeowner right?
Right.
Is what's right? And even my suggestion, even if we just had somebody on board who you knew were gonna hire, who has some expertise in this thing,
Right.
and then be ready to start spending money at that point. It's gonna take us a while to find somebody.
Right.
So that's I'm afraid that, Tom, this isn't going away, so either way, there's too much at stake, in my opinion. And the FEMA was like, put a, sword in the ground, and so they're not gonna say, oh, I was wrong, and walk away.
I'm thinking bottom line, with the school
I understand,
expenses gonna go way up again.
I understand, but that's just my opinion. We need representation.
that would be the question, is how far do you carry it if we do get legal assistance? Do we want to set a dollar amount and say we won't go beyond that point?
I think that's too premature. And, it would be nice if FEMA come back and said, No, this was done when it was allowed to be done, the planning board didn't air, goes away.
Not so
Not
far.
that it's gonna happen, but it would be nice, the permit was given, not to this owner, but to the prior owner, and, was it legal back then, which I think is what they kind of hanging their hat on.
It's one of the things.
Maria, please come forward.
Maria Devery, 15 Woodland Road. I also just wanted to state, this of course my opinion, is that community visit isn't just a friendly visit. I was on one of the calls, several calls with John Grace from Boston. That community visit is his way of figuring out if there are other
Right.
properties that are in violation.
Exactly.
He kept talking about the riprap wall, and if you were there, Gordon, everybody's got a riprap wall on that, stretch there. So he's going to see that. I kept my mouth shut. I wanted to say something about it, but so that visit, my opinion, he's trying to scope out if we've got other violations. So not a friendly visit.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd agree.
The CAV, the Community Assistance Visit, is part of a process that FEMA has in their quiver. I don't know that the intent of a CAV is to create more problems, but, where there's smoke, there's fire, and if they know that there's this issue that the town has apparently taken very little action on in the past, what else could be there? He's only gonna be here for a day.
Thank God.
Yeah, it's sort of like an IRS audit. They're gonna find something to justify their being there and getting paid big bucks to be there, so.
Lynn,
That wall.
Lynn?
Oh, I'm sorry. Lynn Chaplin, 15 Guinea Point Road. All of those walls in Owl's Head all started with the Army Corps of Engineers. Years ago. It's nothing, they've just been doing maintenance, and Swift was definitely a little bit higher than that, but most of them are just, every year or every couple of years, they'll bring in a machine and they'll push the rocks back up again. It's not anything that wasn't intentionally done by a government agency way at the beginning.
No, they just want your land to just wash into the sea, that's all we care about.
So my thought is that we should engage legal advice. Dick's idea is a good one in
Yes.
terms of MMA, but my limited experience with MMA in the dozen times that I've talked to them about different things over the last 4 years, they pretty nebulous on how much they'll say and how deeply involved they want to get, but at least they maybe give us a starting point. So after that, after MMA, what do you want to do?
Well, let's see what they have to say, and they may, I don't know if they ever make recommendations as to legal, counsel. But they may have a list of attorneys that are versed in that, have expertise in that area. So,
Well, we have 2 meetings after this. The second meeting after this would be after the visit by FEMA.
right,
Maybe that's the time that
Right.
we should consider doing this.
Right, I think in the short term, it doesn't hurt to reach out to MMA.
right.
Yeah, no, that's
Right,
fine,
exactly,
because
yeah.
that doesn't cost anything.
Ken, did I see your hand?
I was just gonna say that in my opinion, we need some advice on what to do with the zoning board of appeal issue.
So we can get it on the
I mean,
table.
I think that, this is, maybe I'm too close to the situation, but, this is a big fight going on. And the town has got to look out for its own interests. And I don't think, I think we gotta decide and tell what we're gonna do about the ZBA. Nothing, just point it on to the ZBA. Just, that's just the kind of advice. Fred, I appreciate the budget problems. I bet it. But it just costs money to operate these days. And an attorney is one of the necessary evils that we have to have.
Yeah, the town is a victim of circumstances.
Yes.
In this regard.
Well, when is the ZBA gonna take this up?
They have 35 days
Yeah.
to respond or something like that. Or either respond or to schedule a meeting.
30, I think it's 30 days or 35 days, something like that. Yeah.
So,
So that's almost puts it to that June date anyway.
but even regardless of legal advice about zoning board, the zoning board has to be independent of all of this. We can't have we can get advice from the attorney, but we can't then go to Rodney Mason and say, look, here's what we think. I don't think we can do that.
Well, they may have to have one on their behalf, which obviously the town would have to pay for, because that's happened somewhere. I guess it was Rockland, I think, that they had that big squabble with the planning board and the cell tower and all that.
So really, it should be that the zoning board would come to us and request that an attorney be hired.
Possibly, yes.
I don't think that will happen or would happen until such time as they have received the appeal. And
Right.
go ahead and take action.
So again, I'm thinking it's too soon to do it. But talk to MMA.
Right, yeah, I think we need some guidance, as to where we go from here.
Okay, so we're not gonna vote on anything.
No.
Thank you, Ken, everybody.
We already discussed the damage.
Not enough, I don't think. Let me just, well, give me a second, I'm gonna make myself a note here. All right, next item is the wind damage to the roof of the salt and sand shed. We did have a significant amount of discussion on it. But just so you'll know, Bill and I, and actually coincidentally, Bruce Colson happened to be in the building when I came in to get the key, and he came down with us. And those two guys have far more experience with this type of a thing than I do. And they were both concerned about how much more damage could be caused if we had a significant windstorm. So it's something that's important to get taken care of. We may not be able, as much as I dislike the idea, we may not be able to go out for bids because we don't know that there's actually anybody out there that
Right.
would even bid on it. We'd have to get somebody in there to at least button it up, tighten it in for now, so that we don't suffer anymore until the final repair is done.
Right, Hodge Roofing does metal roofing, I don't know if they do.
I haven't contacted Horch.
Yeah.
I don't know that they do this kind of metal
Right.
roofing, but they do metal
They do,
roofs. Next item on the agenda, discuss the prospect of forming a committee to explore how short-term rentals impact the town's tax base. This is on the agenda because Russ had come before the select board at the last meeting, talked about the growing number of short-term rentals, or STR, in the town of Owl's Head, and how there is a lack or an absence of regulation, inspections, safety issues, how it impacts the tax base because revenue's coming into these properties, but they're not paying any additional money. We have no ordinance in town that deals with inspections for fire and egress and those types of things. When I first put an email out to a bunch of different people, including you guys, I thought perhaps we should go to the town and find out if the town has an appetite for this type of thing before we have even form a committee. Other thoughts are that we should form a committee and bring something to the town. So what are your thoughts?
I see it as two different issues. The one, the licensing or whatever, or the inspections to make sure things are safe, that definitely should be done. I don't really get the income, how that impacts the town. I assume that they pay taxes on it to the state.
Well, no, they pay, if it's a weekly rental or whatever, they pay sales tax to the state. But, and I spoke to Amy about this, we don't use an income approach to value. She doesn't value if you rent your house or your cottage or whatever based on any income. We'd have to get their financial information year after year after year if you're gonna do an income approach. So, and I don't know any other town that does, perhaps they do. I think that we should have a list of people, certainly, that are renting and some sort of occupancy certificate or something along those lines, but I don't think it's gonna help our tax base any, because I don't think they can, because I rent my house for a week during Lobster Festival, my property tax is gonna be more, because I made $1,000, I don't think we can do that, that's not,
Yeah,
I
that's,
don't think
that's
that
what-
works at all.
right, I agree with you. I didn't see
Yeah.
where that would come in,
Right.
but definitely the inspection.
Yeah. And a list, do we know, who owns these properties and who's renting, so that there can be some accountability. If something happens, we know who to call. Okay, this is John Young and he's, this is his property, he rents it, so if something happens, we have a contact at least.
In some municipalities, and I'm sure it's not just in the state of Maine, it's probably all over the country, but STR properties are required to be registered with the municipality. And in theory, it's an honor system. They might be doing it, not registering, they don't tell us.
Right.
But there's no mechanism, even if they did register, for inspections. Scott has indicated that he's got nothing that he can use.
Right.
I don't know if there's anything in state statute that in the absence of a municipal ordinance can be used, like a dangerous building. We don't have a
Right.
dangerous building ordinance, but there's state statute that, that overtakes that issue.
What about fire code is there any state?
At this particular time, I'm not sure that there's any NFPA fire codes in the town of Owl's Head that would allow an inspection by the fire chief. Or his
Could be.
designee.
Obviously,
I think it would
could
have to come from an ordinance.
Sure, right.
And we could charge a fee that would cover the inspection cost.
Yes, again, but we'd have to have a committee built to come up with and do the research on how all of this works elsewhere. But again, I'm not sure that there's an appetite in town for it. If we put this before the town meeting and 100 people show up, are they gonna be favorable to the idea that we're gonna regulate short-term rentals?
I wonder if there's any way to get because you're supposed to pay sales tax on your, if it's less than a week or whatever, I don't know the exact criteria, but I wonder I don't know if the state, if anything they could provide us with a list of, okay, these are the people that are reporting sales tax due because they have short-term rentals.
I think if you go to the town meeting to propose having a committee, people are gonna wanna know more about what they might suggest rather than just voting on, and something that they have no clue as to what it might be. That's why I thought to have the committee first, and the committee then either come up with something for the town meeting or not, depending on, they would hold hearings and people would come and give their impressions of whether there should be something or not at those meetings.
Right. We can appoint a committee, just like we've appointed committees for a bunch of stuff, Abundance Committee, the Comprehensive Plan Committee, this one, we could,
Well, then we get back to the issue that Pam Moss had raised about housing.
Right.
How much of these short-term rentals are cutting into affordable housing opportunities?
My impression on that is mostly when you talk about affordable housing, you're talking about new housing, and I just don't think we have that much property to have new housing on.
No, I don't necessarily agree with that.
You think?
Well, I think we do, but they can't afford the real estate taxes down here. If you've got a modest house, a couple $100,000 at least, possibly more. You know, that's probably modest though.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is, if you got a property that's relatively low value and somebody from out of state comes in and they put $500,000 into it to make a summer home out of it, and they're only there 3 months out of the year, versus keeping it the way it was, and somebody with lesser means is able to go in and buy it and rent it.
Well, the state has, and it's passed, the state now is saying that they've started taking over some zoning rules. If you know, if we have, say, 1 acre of land, that's all you can have is one house, and someone wants to put an apartment on it, an in-law house, or whatever, add to it, the state's now saying the towns have to do that. They have to allow them to do it. They've kind of taken away this local control over towns as far as zoning goes, and putting, you know, houses where they weren't allowed before. And that passed in the legislature just last week or whenever.
All right, Maria, you had your hand up.
I was just gonna say.
Can't hear you, Maria.
I'm sorry, couple things. Maria Devery, 15 Woodland Road. My younger son used to do Airbnb, he no longer does, in another state. So I just wanted to tell you that Airbnb, I don't know about the other rental places, they collect any taxes that are required to be collected by the jurisdiction in which that short-term rental, or could even be a longer-term rental, through Airbnb as well. So monies are collected, sales tax, whatever tax is applicable. The other thing I wanted to state, though, is relative to affordable housing. Your example, you can't force a property owner to rent or sell their place below market, period. So if you have a house here and it costs $300,000 or whatever, and now you want to rent it, long-term rental even, and the market says $3,000 a month, that homeowner is under no obligation, Pam, to rent it for $1,000.
Excuse me, I didn't make that suggestion that you're talking about.
So you're
All right,
saying
all right,
it's
no.
zero. So
Go back and forth.
that's just, you know, to your, you know, example of someone who invests a lot of money in renovating a property, which is good for the town because obviously the assessments are going to rise and that property will generate tax revenue. So those are just the comments that I wanted to make. I did want to state that about Airbnb. I don't know, they're not the only game in town. There's lots of, there's VRBO and there are all these aggregators, and what do? I don't know. I can only talk to Airbnb, and I did a quick search while you guys were talking. While there are more listed, since the last time I looked, it's not like it's, you know, 100 or, you know, it's a couple screens worth of STRs for Owl's Head. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, in some, hang on a minute, yeah. In some towns, they, in fact, municipality puts caps
Yeah,
on those rentals.
right. Rockland requires a permit, and they do put a cap on the number of permits that they'll issue for short-term rentals. They do differentiate between STRs and LTRs, long-term rentals, and I think the differentiation is 30 days. I think that's the last time I had, you know, been curious about it and wanted to get informed. So, you know, so they have several tiers of rentals. So anyway,
Thank you.
that's all I had to say.
Pam, Lynn had her hand up before you did. Sorry.
I'm not changing the subject.
Lynn Chaplin, 15 Game Point Road. The short-term rentals seem to come into two categories. It seems to be either people who own their homes and live in their homes for the rest of the year that rent them out during the summer for either extra income or to, you know, pay for their flood insurance or something like that. And the big corporations, bigger corporations that are coming in and using the short-term rentals. That's the only time that the house is occupied is during the summer. It is strictly a business. And I don't know if Owl's Head wants to get into a differentiation on that, but there is definitely a difference between the two categories. So that was my only
That's why
comment.
I make reference to whether or not the town
Mhm.
wants to, has an appetite for this type of regulation. Thank you. Pam?
First of all, when I say.
Pam, please come.
Oh, I wasn't loud enough to project.
They
When I,
want to see you.
when
Say your name again.
Pam Boss, I still live on Cottage Avenue. When I say affordable housing, I'm not evaluating what affordable is or isn't. So I don't want to be associated with that, just other than the bigger issue that for me is that it's not just a financial issue, as sort of started this conversation. It's what kind of community do we want to live in? Do we want to live in a place with a lot of absentee owners? And I know that's becoming a big issue. It's why Rockland put a cap on it. And to the point of it hasn't changed much in the last year. If you'll remember, my first thing that I said was, let's get a handle on this now before it gets out of control. So I'm not saying it's good economics or bad economics. Maybe the town doesn't care how many absentee landlords we have in town. Maybe we do. So I think the idea of a committee to study it is right on, but looking at the breadth of the issue is the reason I came here tonight to raise my concerns.
Yeah, and you having been prior to this many years ago, owning a B&B, and you rented short term, 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights. We have a different issue in Owl's Head where there's really that I know of, truly commercial B&Bs
I'm not
that are
talking B&Bs,
suffering regulation that independent owners don't have.
I actually am not talking about B&Bs.
No, I know, but you have experience in the rental business.
Well, I
as such.
do. I also have, if we want to go back even further, having lived in an urban area, condominiums with absentee landlords really reduced the overall spending on, absentee landlords tend to spend less on their properties for the upkeep. So it really speaks to what kind of community do we want to live in? Do we want to be a snowbird, a place where people come in and leave? And by the way, the 1 acre thing, I live on a small cranky street. And I really don't want to have a lot of absentee people living there because they don't know how to maneuver a 1-lane street with that's kind of cranky, charming, but cranky.
Thank you. This is a little different than a fisherman who's lived in Owl's Head all his life, and he reaches a point in his life where he can get away for the winter, and he's got a dark house for 3 months, but he's here for the rest of the year. This is entirely different.
Okay, when I think of affordable housing, I think of 2 ideas. One is developments where you have an ordinance or something that demands that they say like 10% of the dwelling units would be affordable housing. I don't think that's ever going to apply to Owl's Head, that we're going to have big developments like that. So the other would be the town would have to buy the property to invest to get the affordable housing, and I don't think we can do that either.
Did I speak to the movies? I'm still paying off, I still live on Cottage Avenue. I actually, the point that you're making, that in fact does happen, what I'm saying we need to do is look at the issue in terms of where do we want to live? What do we have ordinances that would keep big developments from coming in? I don't know the answer to that. And so because it's being raised as a question, I think we're questioning whether or not it is. I'm just saying we have time to look at the issue and be upfront about what we want as a community. I know I don't want a lot of absentee landlords living here for any number of reasons, but and so it's broader than affordable housing, truly.
Okay, thanks again, Pam. Anything else, Bill?
No.
No.
All right, so I think if you guys are amenable to this, we can announce a need for members of the committee to explore short-term rentals. Is that
Yes.
Say that again, do what?
announce a need for members to form a short-term rental committee?
All right, some more committees.
They might be very short term.
Well, it might be, so we get this big report and gets put on a shelf somewhere, but, you know, if there's people, I guess, that are willing to take it on, who are we to say no if they want? to ask some people to step forward and volunteer for this. Is that what you're saying?
I'm asking you guys what you think. I'm asking you and Tom. what you
Well, and
think.
that's what that's what you're saying. Should we?
Can't hurt. If there's no one wants to do it, then obviously there's no interest.
Okay,
Right.
well, that's pretty definitive.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's,
All right, let me
Yeah.
work on trying to come up with something.
yeah, see, you know, if there is a need for it,
You put it on the
see if we want to look
website.
at it.
Yeah, it'd be nice to generate some new bodies, some new,
Yes, exactly. If you're on a
Individuals.
committee now, you can't be on this
Yeah.
one.
current committee members need not apply.
You're right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, right,
Great
right.
idea.
Forget it.
Talk about
We're not
regulation.
gonna call on you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is to consider voting to reschedule the meeting scheduled for the 16th of May to the 23rd of May. I put this on the agenda because, as I've announced in the last two meetings, I will not be in town on the 16th of May, and in further reviewing my trip schedule, I probably will not be available to tune in and participate remotely. So the suggestion for this is somewhat self-serving. I prefer not to miss a meeting. But I also realize that we shouldn't penalize you two just because I'm not here.
I'm amenable to it, especially since we're expecting a resignation for the next meeting.
Right, yeah, I was thinking it was gonna be put off till June, but no, I think it's a good idea. I think it's important to have all three here. There's so much going on that I think we need three people to be involved.
To my knowledge, there isn't anything in ordinance or regulation for town that says we can't do this. I don't
No,
think there is.
no, we change it when there's a holiday, we change it,
Right.
you know. No, there's nothing.
All right, we should vote on this, so if
We
one of you
even
will make
changed
a
the starting
recommendation,
time.
if one of you will please make a.
I make a motion that our next meeting be May 23rd at 4 PM rather than May 16th.
Second,
A motion and a second to move the 16th of May meeting to the 23rd of May. Any discussion? Eleanor, do you have any comments on that, pro or con? Okay. Linda, how do you vote?
yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Can you put some kind of a special notice up? No adjustments to the agenda? No other business?
Just on the interviews, will they have to be after you come back?
Since you're leaving tomorrow, I guess so.
Okay. I couldn't remember exactly how quickly he was.
Unless the two of you want to do it.
No, I think
they
we
should be
need,
there.
I think we need everybody, so we're chugging along, I guess.
Barely.
Yeah,
I just thinking for an
you know, we really gotta get on it because in June there's an election.
And then I'm taking vacation in July, and Pam's owed 7 weeks.
Pam's out what?
She has.
old.
In
owed
7 weeks, well,
yeah.
yeah, she needs to make arrangements for that, so we really need to get this going. When are you coming back?
I will be back in town on the 19th. Flying back on the 18th.
Should we try and do it on the 20th?
Yeah, that was good.
Well, if that works for you guys,
Yes.
let's see if we can come up with a date right now.
Fine with
Because what I'll
me.
do is I'll reach out this week to these individuals
Yeah, set up a
and schedule the time.
because Friday, that's a Friday, town office isn't open, so if we want Eleanor here, then, you know,
No.
that's,
Well,
Do you
but
have any objections to the 19th?
I don't.
would you be back in time?
I'm-
No, back on the
well,
18th.
I'm scheduled to fly back on the 18th.
Oh, I thought you said the 19th, I'm sorry.
Well, I'll be in town.
No, the 19th would be fine, and that way, you know, if we want to, we can hire on the 23rd.
Right,
Rather
Right, I
than
think we need
wait
to-
into June when things start.
Well, that
Colliding.
assumes that one of these will float to the top.
Right.
And
I said we can. Not that we will.
Time of day? I have an 8:30 appointment that morning. My
What?
preference would be that we would do it in the afternoon.
1, 2, and 3, or closer together than that?
Will this be an executive session?
Yes. But we won't, I'll nail down the dates with you so we can put it out for notice.
What do we need, a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour?
What did we do the last time? 20 minutes?
Yeah, I think it
For the
was,
first one?
yeah, 20 minutes, but they were 20 minutes, but they were 30 minutes apart. In other words, it was a 10-minute, lag to
Give people
regroup
time to sit.
or if you ran over or if we needed questions, from Eleanor or Pam.
1, 1:30, and 2. If they can make it, of course.
Yeah.
Excuse me, what day?
Thursday, the 19th.
Because Thursdays, Pam doesn't work on Thursdays. I'm
I know.
myself.
Yeah, I know it.
Well, maybe Friday would be better.
I'll be in Belfast. The baby has a
Okay.
dentist appointment.
All right. Then we're into
That's-
next
Well, we
week.
could always have a special
It's in
meeting to
Belfast.
hire.
Oh, pardon?
We could always have a special meeting to hire.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Well, then let's do it on the 23rd.
12:20. So if you wanted to do it early in the morning on the Friday, as long as I'm out of here by 11.
I know you say Mondays are busy, but since we've got to be here for the meeting anyway, maybe we should do it Monday, like 2:30, 3, and 3:30.
Well, before I'm jamming for at least 2 or 3 hours prior to a meeting. Try to, and as you can see, I never have my act together, but I do my
Well, it's
best.
set at 1 o'clock.
All right, so Monday, the 23rd? Is that what I'm hearing?
I was just thinking that, then if they wanted, they could stay for the meeting and see part of what they have to do.
Maybe they'll change.
I don't think you want to do that.
Yeah, right.
Do that.
They'll change their mind.
So-
Take the car off the lot.
If I'm hearing you, we'll start the first interview at 1 o'clock, yes? On Monday, the 23rd. And successive interviews every 30 minutes. Yes?
Yeah.
Can I get an amen here somewhere?
Amen.
All right, so it's tentative still until we nail these people down, but Monday, the 23rd of May at 1 o'clock will be the first meeting. It'll be one select board meeting. We'll push them out, push them in, push them out, push them in. And that's also the day of the regular meeting as well, at 4. All right,
Sounds good.
we have the warrants. Our next item on the agenda is to approve the warrants.
Is that the only one we have?
That's everything.
Thank you for coming.
What's
Have a good
the
evening.
meeting this guy has raised?
Good, have a nice vacation.
Thank you. See you when I get back.
What's the-
Such a brave man, really. Everybody knows when and where you're going.
Not a lot of secrets in this town.
When I lived in Camden, I went away over the years several times to visit my parents, but twice on the weekends, my house was broken into.
That's no fun.
So I had to get an alarm system, and I'm very sure that people didn't know, anyone doesn't know where I was coming from.
Well, my son and Romeo will be there, so.
No, Romeo won't let anyone in.
Take it that's an animal.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I keep the folder? Do I need to check for mail?
I'll go check for you.
I think last time I thought about it, the door was locked. I'm bad with names, but is one of these a repeat?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Yes,
No, well,
don't say the names, but we'll,
Well, yeah,
Let's do this
okay,
first.
all right.
Okay, no, I was just thinking but if so, that one will go faster probably.
if you. Pen must be gone, huh?
Yes.
This is her pen. And if you'll let her know, please, that we still have not final acted on this. And it's going to come up again in the future.
Is there another one of these or is that it?
Do you have anything
Another
else?
what?
I think that's.
No,
all.
I don't have any.
It doesn't seem as many as usual. I make a motion that we sign, that we approve the warrants as signed.
Second,
We have a motion and a second to approve the warrants as presented and signed after they have been reviewed. Is there any discussion? Linda, how do you vote?
yes,
Tom?
Yes,
Chair votes yes. Chair will entertain a motion to add adjourn.
so moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Thank you all.